Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with another Path of Exile video, League Starter for 3.19 Lake of Kalandra. This will be the Raging Spirit Summoner. Again, I said this in the other videos, my beard is gone, it's a sub-goal on the stream. I do stream 6 days a week. During League launch times, I stream 7 days a week, and currently I'm going live at 1900 hours CEST every day. The schedule for the regular schedule will be posted in the Discord server as well as on my Twitter, so do check that out in the links in the descriptions below. Hope to see you guys there. This video, or this guide rather, will be having a full-blown written guide in detail linked to the descriptions below, focusing on the low budget end. There will be 2 different PUBs in there, one for the low budget, which also caters to the approach of having the act leveling skill set. There will be a tree that you can switch around for leveling as well. These will be detailed and descriptive in the written guide as well. And the other PUB will focus on the medium and high budget version. The reason I'm splitting these up is because of the custom modifiers, which I'll talk about during this video. So I'm going to speed through the idea of this build, the focus that I've had, and the Ascendancy choices. And if you like the video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more content and stuff like that, because that helps our channel out quite a lot. And we only have like 35% or something of the people watching the stream, the videos that are actually subs. So I'd appreciate if you hit that, because that helps the channel out more than you think. All right, so before you do that, let's see if you enjoy the video. The SRS build, we will start off with leveling with either SRS or with Absolution. Absolution should be the faster one, but with the buffs coming into SRS, you could potentially level with it, or actually you can, but we don't know if how much better or worse it will be. Worst case scenario, it will be pretty much on par. So the guide will actually showcase the leveling with SRS. As you get to level 8, you can go melee splash minion damage with the SRS approach and have some extra damage through Holy Flame Totem with Summoned Phantasms. Again, I'm not going to go too much in depth with the leveling trees. You're going to see that in the PUB and the written guide. So when you get to the end game and you start playing this build, the idea is to rush over and get the minion damage nodes, get some more reservation, and get some block nodes through Sanctuary. But the most important part is going to be later further down the road. When you get the maps, you're going to want to purchase a very bad low item level large minion damage cluster. These cost 1-2 chaos approximately, because their lower item level can barely roll any of the notables. So that's why I've only added renewal as one of the mods. You can get tons better options in here, like race and pillage, or just extra attack and cast speed for minions, or whatever other modifiers you can get, which would be actually better than having the renewal in here. The amount of passives, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, doesn't matter. This is just here so we can smack in a medium cluster jewel for Blessed Rebirth, which is going to be very, very attractive for the end game play. End of yellow tiers, red tier, you're gonna want this. I took a 6 passive, which is very bad. You want to have a 4 or 5 passive, but again, just to keep the cost down of this build of a low budget, I took the worst you can get to keep the cost down. So you want to have a Blessed Rebirth, which you can alteration craft yourself very easy. There is a Quickening Covenant here, not mandatory, but that's something you're gonna want to add in the later stages as well. Other than that, you're just picking up the extra minion damage through this cluster for the late game stage of the build. Very straightforward, decent HP, and just minion related modifiers and block nodes as well as the reservation modifiers. Outside of that, the build itself is oiling up Arcane Guarding, which is something we don't normally do, which is over here. This is to minimize the rolls that you need on the Rumi's Concoction Flask to get ourselves to a block cap. This is because Rumis can, in some cases with the higher rolls, be somewhat expensive. This will allow you to keep the cost down of this, and the oiling cost for Arcane Guarding is only a clear teal and a black oil, which is very, very cheap. Outside of that, the Ascendancy notice is very straightforward. Again, you go Mindless or Commander Darkness as the first and then second Ascendancies. Third one, I would go Mr. Sacrifice, as we're going to be using Bone Offering to increase our block chance, and then finish off with Bone Barrier for the higher endgame content to ramp our defense stats up significantly. The EHP on this character is hilariously good, and it's a very, very tanky build, even on low budget, pushing about 1.5 million Shaper DPS. This is without having Spectres enabled as per usual. If I were to enable the temporarily set damage gain from the Spectres, we would be sitting at 1.9 million Shaper DPS, but since this is not something that you'll have 100% uptime of, I don't want to have that in the PUB. Outside of that, that covers the tree, Ascendancy, and the Spectres. The item is a generic plus level of spells. You can have a plus level of minion skills or fire skills in here as well that would work with a trigger craft to make things easy and smooth for you. There is a Surrender Shield, which is the to-go-to choice for a lot of low-budget minion builds in the current state of the game. This one is not mandatory. It will be something you really want to get, though, at the end of yellow tiers or red tier maps. Early in the league, this will cost a couple of currency orbs, I can tell you that much, but it will go down very fast. So if you're playing this, it's not going to be a problem for you to afford this in the yellow tiers if you're able to get there early, because you should be making that amount of currency. It's not going to be super expensive. If you're playing the game, you're reaching red tier maps a week, 1.5 week into the league, then this will crash down to be very, very affordable at that point as well. So you don't have to worry about the cost of this. Basically, the TLDR is that if you're a player that can reach red tier maps in the first couple of days of the league, then you will have enough currency to be able to buy this. If you're a player that reaches red tier maps after a week of the league, the shield will have gone down so much in price that it's not going to be a problem either. Other than that, we have generic helmet with life armor, tabula rasa again for the low budget, keep the cost down. You can buy a corrupted 6 link obviously for a little bit of currency, which should be a lot better than this. Do keep in mind that you get the correct colors for that though. We have armor related pieces for armor and energy, sorry, armor and life. And movement speed and boots very important. Oiling the Arcane Guardian. Make sure you get your attributes sorted, strength and dexterity through your jewelries. Such as the rings or your amulet can have a good fitting for dexterity and strength as well. Darkness of the Throne, cheap belt. Jewels with 1 damage modifier. It is important for this build that you have additional added fire damage on at least a couple of these jewels, and I'll tell you why in a bit. Rumi's Concoction to help with this for blocking. This is for endgame, not something you have to stress with. Take this last if you so will. Quickening Covenant is literally the last one. Other than that, the medium cluster is kind of mandatory for the higher endgame content. Again, something you don't have to worry about until later in the game. Skill-wise, the SRS will be running an immolate approach, which is giving you increased fire damage but a lot of added flat fire. The POB is not updated with the skill gems, which we'll see after the league launches, which means that we're going to benefit a lot more from this support gem than we currently are in this POB that is listed in the guide. Fire Penetration, Ruthless, Multi-Strike, which we will be switching for Melee Splash for clearing. Predator, which we will switch for Unleash when we're clearing to make it a bit smoother, so you can run, cast Unleash, get 3 minions out, run, cast, get 2, maybe 3 minions out again, and you're using that for clearing. And for single target, you're going to stand still and pre-cast your minions to get all of your minions out. The trigger one will be life tap supported because your mana will be a bit tight. That's why we're using an enduring mana flask to sustain our mana, especially for single targets. Bone Offering and Desecrate, and then the auras will be a Flame Dash, Flammability with a Skitter bot being the aura in the setup. The zombies we'll be using is Combustion, which allows us to ignite enemies and giving them negative fire resistance. This is why it's very important that you add a flat fire on your ghastly jewels, or this will not work. There will be an elemental army, which also allows them to provide exposure, so these will provide a ton of negative fire resistance on the enemies. Feeding Frenzy, very important to give them the Feeding Frenzy buff to your SRS. Utility minions, Enemy Guardian, not included in the low budget POB. A link in the descriptions below will get you to the Enemy Guardian written guide, which houses a video as well, which would go in depth with what you can do with it. I would prefer to run a Stone Golem, but Karen Golem will lower your defense but up your damage quite significantly, as you can see here. But this will be even more damage increase when the gem changes are in the POB as well. Minion life to keep the guys alive, and there's a Race Spectre in here. Quick note about the Race Spectre is that we can have 2, which means an Arena Master and a Pale Seraphim. This is from the Influence monsters, and this Pale Seraphim is from the Scourge/Beyond encounters, both of which you can come to my global channel, 6666, and ask for them in there. We'll have myself and many other people in our community that help you out to get them if you so need. Other than that, the auras we're running plus Convocations in the last 4 link, which is Determination, Tempest Shield, Convocation, and Defiance Banner, and that basically covers everything. It is a very straightforward build, hilariously tanky, and packs a good punch with low budget investments. When it comes to the higher budget versions, we have in the configuration, the custom modifiers, telling you to cap your elemental resistances with your gear, of course, as well as your stats. The utility specters are not enabled. Animate Guardian is normally not in my low budget version of my builds. However, the other POB that I'll be showing you is the medium and high budget versions of this. So first off, the medium budget, you can see in the trees here, you can choose between medium and high. In the skill set, choosing between medium and high. And in the gear set, medium, high, or even a mirror tier. But we're going to start with the medium budget. First big change is that we're now using an 8 passive proper item level large cluster jewel to give yourself Call to Slaughter, Raise and Pillage, and Brand Renewal. We're also running in Blessed Rebirth, but on a 4 passive jewel, or 5, but in this case 4, because we also want to have Renewal together with the Blessed Rebirth and a block cluster with 1 with the shield to get close to the block cap for your character. This combined with the similar nodes that we talked about in the low budget, we have the Determination Reservation as well as block nodes in this corner, minion damage, Reservation Masteries, HP, block, damage. It's so straightforward, similar to the low budget build. Packs an insane amount of EHP, similar approach when it comes to the Ascendancies, and we're doing about 4.4 million shaper DPS. Item-wise, we are going to be using the Covenant because the added chaos damage from the Covenant is crazy good. There is a small risk that this will be a very expensive chest. If it is, I still think that this will be the best option. I'll take a look at it if that's the case, but this should be the best option. Other than that, it's just a straightforward approach. I haven't changed the jewels, so you can get better jewels if you want to. The weapon, I added a +2 instead with minion damage. That one's giving you a bit more damage than the low-budget version as well. Outside of that, the skill set changes is that we're now using Woke Elemental Damage attacks, Woke Fire Pennant, Woke Minion Damage, Multi-Strike being Divergent because the Woke Multi-Strike is actually more expensive than the Divergent. And also want to get Woke Unleash and Woke Belly Splash. These will cost a little bit of currency. Some of them might be mega expensive, upon which you just skip that and maybe run an alt quality gem instead. Trigger, same approach as before. We're running Awakened Generosity Anger in this setup. We have zombies the same as before, a bunch of other changes, but most importantly, the Amulet Oil goes into Charisma to allow us to run the extra auras instead of a Skater bots that we're running for this setup. When it comes to the high budget version, there's higher pressure on running Woke gems such as Woke Multi-Strike. The cluster jewels are turned into the meta clusters, 12 passive, 35 effect, vicious bite, attack speed, and an inner shield. We're also going into the classic approach of going CI in combination with Aegis Aurora together with the Divine Shield and GB, which we are again reaching with Thread of Hope. This kid says an insane amount of EHP, and the build is doing about 20.8 million Shaper DPS because we're moving our SRS into a generic minion helmet, which you want Flesh Offering Enchant on. And the reason we're doing this is because we can get minion damage, hypothermia, as well as plus level of minion skills through our helmet. Very straightforward, similar to what we've done with Mage Skeletons in the past. And the auras is running Generosity, but since we can put auras in our chest piece, we will be using a level 3, preferably level 4, but 3 will be fine. Enlighten, allowing us to run the Discipline and basically go from there with the build. So that's how it's run in that specific approach. However, when it comes to this specific version of the build, it's very important that we deal enough damage to apply chill effect on the enemies, and that's not going to be very easy to achieve with SRS, so instead we're using Vortex to generate the chill, since we don't have room for Skitter bots. So we don't have any shock, but we will be chilling thanks to Vortex on single target to make use of the hypothermia on the helmets. You could replace the hypothermia with Socket. The spells have crit modifier as well, so there's a couple of different versions that this would work with. Mirror tier version, the only changes is basically just a bigger one, which I haven't even bothered adding. The only thing I've added is a mirror helmet, which is Socket spells have the elevated crit and the elevated hypothermia with the Essence of Horror, with the 20 minion damage, with the +2 to all minion skills, packing about 33.4 million Shaper DPS. We're also running Incandescent on both of the higher budget versions because we can mitigate so much damage with this, giving us a stupidly tanky build. That's about it. I don't want to waste more time on this. All the POBs will be in the written version in the linked guide in the descriptions below. So make sure you guys check it out. I hope you guys found the build or video useful. If you did and watched this far into the video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more content. I'll catch you guys in the next one. So until then, stay safe, keep rocking.